Well, that's another week down. So we'll go over where MSTY sets today. And then also, I did purchase a few more shares of CONY. Hello, my friends. This is Legend. So today, we're going to talk about MSTY. And as you can see, MSTY has a distribution rate of 144%. But is it up or is it down on the price? So we'll go over that, where it's setting, and is it getting close to a buy point for me. And then we will also talk about CONY, where I did purchase a few more shares, as we did go X yesterday and paid out today for CONY and the other Group C ETFs for YieldMax. So let's just go ahead and slide right over to the chart and check out what MSTY did. All right, so here we are on MSTY. And as you can see, it did close today at $21.55. It is down 11 cents, which is about a 0.5% down from yesterday's close. And if we zoom in here, you can see that the candle closed just slightly higher than it did today. Therefore, that's why we have that negative 0.5%. Because the close of yesterday was slightly higher than the close from today. So let's just take a look to see if it's a good buy point for me and what I'm looking for. So first of all, I'm going to switch it over to the adjusted chart. And to do that, I can just simply click those three lines up there, go from actual to adjusted, hit the OK button there, and here we are. So for the adjusted, it's a little bit better for the indicators. The actual I use for the actual price. So right now I have the Bollinger Band turned on. And as you can see, we are at the bottom of the Bollinger Band. And we do have some negative momentum. And we do have red volume for MSTY. Now for MSTY, when I'm looking at the charts, really the only thing that I'm looking for is a buy price. I'm not necessarily evaluating MSTY itself because MSTY uses Mr. as the underlying. Therefore, if you want to evaluate it, you would need to evaluate MSTR. But the reason I look at the chart and I'm looking at the Bollinger Band and I'm looking at that RSI mostly is just because I'm looking for a good buy price. Now, I also check out MSTR. But as you will see, it looks very similar to the chart on MSTY because MSTY does follow Mr. and therefore the chart looks very similar. So what I'm looking for my buy price on MSTY is I'm looking for that candle, first of all, to be below that mid of the Bollinger Band. That blue line here, that's the midpoint. I'm looking for it to be below the mid. And I prefer it to be close to or at the bottom of the Bollinger Band here. And then my next item that I'm looking for is the RSI2 indicator. And as you can see here, that yellow, that's the RSI2 indicator right here. So right now it is sitting at 39.96. If that comes on down and it goes down below the 10 and that candle here is still at the bottom, at least under that midpoint of the Bollinger Band, then for me, that could be a good buy price to get a few more shares of MSTY. So that is the main reason that I'm looking at those indicators for MSTY. It is only trigger points for me to use to buy more shares. That's it. But if we want to look a little deeper, we can check out MSTR. And here we're looking at MSTR. And as you can see, I've got the Bollinger Band turned on as well for this one. And it too is close to the bottom of the Bollinger Band, definitely below the mid. We do have that negative momentum here, but it does look like it is trying to level off. As you can see, I can put my cursor across here like that, and you can see that it is looking pretty straight. So it is somewhat trying to level off. The RSI is flat, so it's been flat for a few days here, and so has the stock itself. It has been somewhat trading sideways. Now it is within a range here, of course, but there's no really big movement up or big movement down. We are at the bottom of that Bollinger Band, so for me, that could be a potential look to see if it's time to buy. And that's what pushes me over to the RSI 2 here, this yellow line. And if it's below that 10, then for me, that means I'll look a little deeper into seeing, do I actually want to purchase more shares of MSTR? And do I have the dry powder to actually do so? So that, of course, is the first thing, is you got to have the money available to buy more shares. But if I do, then if it's at the bottom of that Bollinger Band and it's down below that 10 and I'm looking to get a few more shares anyway, for me, that's a good time to really think about buying some more shares. And that's the same thing that I use it for in MSTY as well, MSTY. I utilize that same thought, bottom of the Bollinger Band, RSI 2, down below the 10. And you can see this 10, that's the 10 I'm talking about out here. And I just drew this purple line here just for visualization. That's not actually there, I drew it. And you can add any kind of lines you want to your charts, but that way it's a quick visual that I can see, oh look, it did drop here, right, on 523, and it was at the bottom of the Bollinger Band. So if you are watching the chart at that time, you could have bought some shares at that point. Now, you also have to see that that does not mean that's the bottom. It could go up as it did the next day, but then the next day it did come down even lower. So you don't know what the future holds, but that's just what I use for my buy points. It just helps me to decide when's a good time to buy. It may not be the right time, and I may also miss out on some buys. Because as you can see, we are at the bottom of that Bollinger Band. It is trading sideways. And if you're thinking this thing's going to shoot on up, and it could, and here I am, I'm still waiting on that RSI 2 to come on down below that 10. So I could very well miss out on a buy. But that's okay. I'm going to play the patient game, and I'm going to wait until my indicators tell me when is a better time to buy. It may not necessarily be a lower price, as if this does go up and then it comes back down to the bottom of that Bollinger Band, but I could be up here, right? It could be at $26 and then it starts coming down to about 25 and then it drops below that 10. Well, I'm buying another few shares at that point, right? Instead, I could have bought it at this $21.55 range. So that's what I mean by it does not mean that that is the perfect time to buy, but you have to come up with some type of system that you use to determine when you're going to buy. Maybe it's a set price. Maybe if MSTY's below a certain price, then you're willing to buy shares at that price. And that's fine too, because it is your portfolio and you can treat it as you will. And you make your own decisions, as you should. There is no one way to do it. Everybody has their own way of investing and buying and such. So one thing to also mention, next week, MSTY will be going X. So we will hopefully be seeing a distribution next week. So I'm super excited about that. Hopefully it's a nice distribution. I have seen in the comments where some of the people are thinking it's going to be a little lower. Could be. Bitcoin has been kind of going down. MSTR has been kind of, coming down a little bit here. But if you think about it, for MSTY itself, if our calls that we have sold on MSTR for MSTY here, if they don't get hit, then we should be making good premium. Because then we would be keeping that premium because the price comes down. Therefore, we don't get hit at that call option that we had sold at. And therefore, we get to keep more premium. We buy it back at a lower price and keep the difference. But the one thing that I don't want to see necessarily is MSTY price to continue to go down. Because if MSTY price continues to go down, then that distribution that we would earn, and that's that dollar amount distribution that we would earn, will start getting smaller and smaller. And you can see that on some of the other YieldMax ETFs. But MSTY so far, as you can see, it has been somewhat flat to up, right? And that's a good thing. And of course, we still have that support line right here on MSTY that we're looking at, that $20.38. And yes, I do realize that MSTY uses synthetic shares. They do not own actual shares of MSTR, so evaluating MSTY doesn't make much sense. But for me, I'm using the indicators to help me determine when is my buy price. So one more thing I want to check out before we change over to CONY and see what I did on that. Let's just take a quick look at Bitcoin. And as you can see, yesterday we had saw that it looked like it was kind of wanting to come down. We had that negative momentum building, and we did have that cross down, and it was pulling away from that signal line. And of course today looks like we're continuing on coming down. The momentum is increasing on the downside. The MACD is still pointing down, and our RSI is at 51. So we're still right there in the middle on the RSI. So we're not oversold. So right now, there really isn't anything here saying that this is going to turn around until we get closer to more of a support line, which could be somewhere right in this area. And that would be around, looks like maybe 102 to 103K. So for now, looks like Bitcoin is coming down a little bit. But like I said, we do have a little bit of a support right in this area around that 103 to 102K. So we'll see if that can bounce off of that and start moving back up. But it is Bitcoin, right? So let's just go ahead and slide over to CONY. All right, so here we are on CONY. And as you can see, we have been coming down a little bit. And we did have our distribution X date here yesterday, which then takes out that price of the distribution out of the price of the stock. And that distribution that would pay out is 73 cents. So because of that, we have now the price sitting at $7.70. So I saw that at about roughly the close of the market. So I went ahead and I purchased 15 shares at $7.71 for those 15 shares. So my average on CONY is around about 12 bucks. I went ahead and I got a few more shares, and that is going to bring down my average a little bit, getting them at that $7.71. Now I'd prefer it to be down on the bottom end of this Bollinger Band, but the reason that I went ahead and I got them at this price here is simply because if you look back here for the last month or so, it keeps getting close to that midpoint of that Bollinger Band and bouncing off of it, right? And goes up, comes down, get to the mid of that Bollinger Band, and I didn't want to miss getting a few shares to help bring down my average on CONY. Now, I did not get a whole lot of shares. I only bought 15 shares. Now, had it been in the bottom end of the Bollinger Band, and as you can see, the RSI2 is low. It is at 10.38. So we're just at that 10 on the RSI2. And if it gets down below that midpoint, we might get all down below the 10. But I wanted to go ahead and buy a few shares just in case this does bounce off of that mid and start moving back up. And of course, what would cause it to do that? Well, it's the price movement of Coinbase. And as you can see, here's Coinbase. And it's been doing just the same thing, right? Getting about close to that mid and bouncing off. Getting close to that mid, and then, I don't know, is it going to bounce off, or are we going to go ahead and break them down below it? You can see that the RSI2 is below the 10. It's actually at 9.17. We did get the cross down on the MACD, which is a negative sign. So this could be coming on down, and that's fine. If it does and gets down close to the bottom of that Bollinger Band and that RSI2 is still below 10, then I will get a few more shares of CONY. And that's why I only got 15 today. That way I can get a few more if that price does come on down. So that was my thought on CONY. So what do you think? Do you have a set price that you buy your MSTY or CONY or any of the other ETFs at? Or do you look at an indicator? Or do you look at the underlying and determine when to buy the YieldMax ETF? Throw them in the comments. Let me know. How do you decide when's the right time to buy more MSTY? For me, well, like I said, I'm looking at the bottom of the Bollinger Band and I'm looking for that RSI2 below 2. It's a nice, easy thing to check, although I could miss out on those buy points. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button. It'd be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, legend out.